Welcome back to the VR workshop. It's been a long time coming, but our Landspeed bike has power. It has been a long time coming, but we have eventually got power to our bike. You see in the last video we left off where we'd laid the loom in place, but there were still a lot of plugs to do. Things like the kill switch needed a plug because it didn't come with a plug on the loom. Our wrist kill switch also needed a plug. Various sensors like our air temperature sensor, our oil temperature sensor, we needed to plug that as well. So we've had to do a bit of wiring ourselves. But, and also the 12 to 5 volt converter for our phone dashboard. But we've eventually got everything plugged. I'm pretty sure, in fact, I know everything now has a plug. Since then, we've turned the key, or flicked the switch, so to speak, to understand what happened. And everything so far seems to work, but there's a lot of systems we go through. But one thing we did record through the week was mounting our phone onto the mudguard and how we're going to have to paint that again. Previously, we had our AIM dashboard bolted on this bracket here. And then we had a bit of bar, and we had our Garmin wrist GPS sitting here. And that recorded our top speed and anything else. I think the first year we didn't actually have speed. So we had this, and we use these for off-road all the time. The second year we did actually fit the GPS to the dash as well. But so it's kind of evolved a bit, this mudguard, because the first year the bottom end went all the way to the bottom and stopped here, and we realized that all the salt was going in our face, so we extended the mudguard and chopped it here because you're only allowed 210 degrees of wheel covered, or is it 210 showing? Either way, there's a reason it's this length. The dashboard we're using is a Samsung, I think it's A6 or something like that. It's just Bluetooth. The ECU's got Bluetooth. It can Bluetooth all the data straight to the dashboard, and the MaxxECU software can just be displayed straight on here. So for the third year running, we need to get the grinder out and attack this mudguard because it's going to sit there somewhere. So time to cut again. So, it turns out there was more body fill in this mudguard than I thought. Considerable amount. But it's been cut and shut twice, so I can get it. We need to position our dashboard somewhere where A, I can read it, because that's going to be handy. But B, it can't be used as an aerodynamic aid. Now, when we had the AIM dash on here, the original, the year one, we had this fitted. It sat about there. We got away with it in year one, but we weren't really close to any records in year one. Year two, we got a bit cheeky and we tilted up a bit. And then when we got there last year, they went, no, that's aerodynamics, that's not allowed, you got to remove it. So we ran with the bare dashboard and all the wires zip tied within an inch of their life to make sure they weren't flapping in the wind. So if we have this here, it is in the wind, but it could also kick. It could kick the wind up a little bit. Or we could have it here, so it's still visible-ish, but not obstructing view. I think the best way to do it is put the seat on it, then lie on the bike, check it out. It's been a minute since I've been here. So, I reckon I could go as low as there, still see. That's probably better, but I don't know how much it's going to kick up. So, let's mark it where we think it's going to go. And then mark it where it would be nice. Because I can still see the top of the mudguard from here. Oh, I forgot how uncomfortable this bike is. It really is. But one thing's for certain, with that dashboard here, I've got some bars here obviously, you can actually see a whole lot more. It's maybe not a good thing because, you know, seeing shit, scary. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Alrighty, so the top one is exactly what we thought. I think it's going to be possibly taken as an aerodynamic aid, and it is in the wind, so I think there is probably the better bet. I don't wear glasses when I ride, and these days, because I'm bloody old, seeing close is kind of difficult, but I can change the screen. So what do I need? I need revs, I need a big warning light. Speed would be kind of nice, but I can make the font really big. I'm just going to be glancing at it anyway. It's kind of difficult to see when your eyeballs are bouncing around like that at 200 miles an hour. So yeah, I think that is where it's going to go. Yeah. Hehe. There's a little mounting hole in the middle which I designed when I 3D printed this. It's going to be Sikaflexed on at the very end, but at least there'll be one mechanical bolt in there. And we'll obviously trim the bolt at the end to make sure it's not going to rub on the tire. Because as we found out last year, you do get a lot of salt build up in the underside here, and it can, and well, it will groove the tire, because it has. So this bolt's going to have to be pretty flush. But it's more just as a mechanical safety. Yeah, that works. That's actually quite, even just with a one bolt, quite strong. The moment of truth, let's see how this puppy looks when it's in. And I know I made this phone holder slightly too tight. Or rather, very too tight. Yeah. It's going to need a bit of finagling, I think. Mind you, it goes in once. Oh, here we go. And there is our dashboard. So now that the dashboard is actually mounted, we've wired it up to our little 12 volt to 5 volt converter, because the M-Tune, no, that's the M-Tune software, this is the M-Dash software. The M-Dash software does apparently draw quite a lot of power. So we could switch the phone on, switch the phone off every time we want to run, or we can just have permanent power to it, so every time the bike is running, it's charging the phone, so it's not sucking up a massive amount of battery. It's one less thing to worry about. It's a tiny little wire. The good thing is, versus the last dashboard, there is just one little cable up this end, apart from the kill switch and the start run switch. So it does make things a lot neater. As I said before, we've gone through, we've fitted plugs to everything, we've been testing everything as we go. A lot of calibrations ahead of us. It looks like the temperature sensor that we bought off the shelf does actually read the proper temperature, which is kind of nice. The oil temperature, I haven't even started looking at that in the software. Just kind of slowly working our way through of what works and what doesn't work. So we now know our throttle position works. We can twist the throttle, we're getting 100% throttle somewhere in the dashboard. We did have to modify the cable stay to suit us, because the original one had it sticking upwards, which didn't suit our needs, so we had to bend it down. When we bent it down, the throttle stop moved, so we were actually getting 100% throttle then 0, which wouldn't have been very good. So we've had to adjust the throttle stop to make all that work. So slowly going through systems to understand what works, what doesn't work, and what adjustments we need to make. I'm not going to lie, I didn't record the first time I switched it on. I normally do things like that, but I was quite concerned, so I thought, you know what, I'm not going to do it for the first turn on. I'm just going to not have a camera in case things go zap or there's smoke or whatever. And I'll be honest, I was quite apprehensive about putting power to this. It's a lot of work, there's a lot of unknowns, and it's check and recheck and recheck and recheck. But eventually going to bite the bullet. And I did. I came back here at 9 o'clock one night and just sawed it, powered it up to see what it did. And I'll be honest, I turned the breaker, which we have here, which we moved, turned that on and nothing at all. The conversation I had with the guy who did the wiring was that would be the main power, and there's no ignition on this bike. So he's wired everything into the start-stop switch, the kill switch, if you like. So when you hit this, lots of cool things happen. You hear the phone suddenly getting power, the fuel pump primes are boost solenoid clicks, and when we first did this, the fan started blowing. Our main fan down here, because it's not fitted to the radiator, that started going absolutely berserk. Since looked at the software, we've got 2 temperature settings on this. One is for the oil cooler fan, another one is for the main fan, and the main fan had it set at 0. So yes, of course, it was just going absolutely mental. So we've got it all set up, we've got the software. What's really good about this MaxxECU software, which I'm finding out, that as soon as you have power to it, it reads the ECU, it's instant. The old software I had for the Ducati engine, which was, I can't remember, it'll come back to me, Microtech. It was a bit clunky, it took a minute to connect, it wasn't just all that great in timing, whereas this is just absolutely instant, you don't have to do anything with it, it just reads it straight away. And also I'm looking at the dashboard, because it's Bluetooth, all this was shut down through the night, and I've come back and the dashboard's automatically picked up the Bluetooth from the ECU, and that's now connected as well. So one thing I'm noticing with this dashboard is, okay, like got battery voltage reading both sides. It's very, very responsive. It's very, very quick. It doesn't seem to be any lag in it, which is really good. For us, for our requirements, it's not going to make too much of a difference if there's a little bit of lag, but it just shows you if you have a different type of build, a street build or a race car build, but race bike build, you could use this dash full time. But we're getting to learn it. It's all very new. It's an amazing software. So much stuff to go through it, and I'm not going to sit here and we're going to go through all the parameters of the software. Plenty of other YouTube videos about that, some of which I'm learning. But it's quite intuitive. There is a lot of information there, though. There's a lot of information, so there's a lot of learning ahead, which is not a bad thing. Before we actually start this thing, there's a couple of things I want to check. I want to make sure all the sensors are correct, they're calibrated, they're working. I'm slowly working through them. But the biggest one I want to check is the boost controller and get this working. The biggest question mark I have in this whole wiring system is the boost controller. I've never used one before, but our idea with this is we can then control the boost. I'm sure I've mentioned this in other videos. We can control the boost through revs, through gears, through speed. We can get total control of how much boost we're putting into this engine, which is going to help us with traction. The previous Ducati engine we had, it did have a little manual boost controller, so we could kind of adjust it, not by much, and it was set and then run it. And when the boost came on that, it was a kick in the pants and generally spun the tire or burnt a clutch, or sometimes both. So the beauty with this is we can control everything. We can set 4 psi for gear 1, 2, and 3, and then start ramping it up until like 10 or 15 psi, whatever we end up running, up to higher revs and to higher gears. That said, there's a lot of setup to do. So the wastegate diaphragm, there's a spring in there, but there's also air ports at both sides. The ECU itself has got its own map sensor, so it does need a manifold pressure feed. And what we're doing is we're taking a feed from, maybe ignore this for now, we're taking a feed from our plenum chamber, going to the bottom side of this wastegate, and then teeing off that to the ECU. We then take another feed and run it into the boost controller, or the solenoids for the boost controller. That has got a pressure switch. The pressure switch monitors the top end of the, am I right in saying this? Yes. No, I've even got it confused myself. Already, no, I am right. Pressure switch manages the top of the top hat of the boost controller, and then goes into the other side of the solenoid. So with an absolute pressure switch and the manifold pressure, etc., the system has got everything it needs to manage a very accurate closed loop constant adjustment system. But it's a bit tricky. It's taken me a little minute to understand how to plummet with the pneumatic piping, which we've now done. Unknowingly, we still don't have the right fitting. In the last video we left off, we said we're waiting for fitting. We got one. We need it to M10 in and MPT out, and it's done a complete opposite. I've since ordered another one from America, and it just arrived, and it's wrong again. Fucking hell. So, junk that, I'm gonna go on my lathe, I'll make one myself. Twice, I'm not gonna get the right one the third time, I'll just make one, make it easier. But once we have that, everything will be plumbed correctly. I do have slight concerns on this plastic pipe being so close to the turbo, but we'll suck it and see. I don't know how good it's gonna be until we try it. And you know, we've got little T-pieces here and there, so when we do go to the salt, spare tubing, spare T-pieces, spare fittings, etc. And if it does look like it's going to start getting hot, we will start shielding it as well. But it's an interesting one. So what I was doing with this is just a regulator. And I mean, trying to play with the parameters on the software and put an airline into it, and understanding how the boost controller works and where the solenoids are kicking in and where the wastegate's getting lifted. Understanding how the whole thing works. It's an interesting concept, and it's a new one to me, and I'm sure people watching have seen this before and going, oh, how don't you know about this? It's new to me, I'm learning it. But we're getting there. While we're here, we have our brake master cylinder fitted as well. It's a Hell one. The previous one, the Brembo one we had, fouled the mounting bolt, so it's a new one, so nice little race number. Probably a bit overkill for what we needed for, but it looks good. So yeah, that is our boost controller. I think the most impressive thing so far with this build, or with this electrical system, I should say, is everything seems to be working out the box. You know, it's an ECU we bought here, never used it before. It's a wiring loom we got made completely other side of the world. Some sensors are standard, some sensors are very much not standard. But so far, obviously the bike's not been started yet, so far, everything has worked with either zero or very minimal changes. For example, the software here, it's got a configuration table where we can just test things like the oil cooler fan, or the main fan. I'm gonna have to hold this one. Fuel pump relay, you know, all the basics are actually wired and working, and impressively without any issues. But yeah, so far I am very impressed with the MaxxECU software. Not sponsored at all paid for, sadly. But it looks quite intuitive, quite easy to use. It's vast though, it is quite daunting, I'm not gonna lie. It makes a bit more sense that it's plugged in, you can see how things are working, but it is quite daunting, and there's a massive list of parts or sensors and settings that we need to get through to make all this work. We did get the guy who built the wiring loom, he's used these ECUs on GSXRs before, so he has given us a basic setup for this, but we still need to configure quite a lot of things with it. But yeah, we're not far away from getting this thing started. Maybe this week. Probably do need to thumb the starter at one point just to make sure the solenoid works and we can hear noise, but we're getting there. So yeah, join us next time for some noise.